Good day, everyone, and welcome to our weekly overview of recent market updates. Kevin and I will walk you through latest developments to help you stay on top of latest events. We'll also walk you through key technical levels to guide your trading. Hey, Kevin, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. I was just checking, and the ECB, the European Central Bank, cut rates to 2%. So I was wondering if Powell will follow suit maybe soon. What do you think?
I think he's going to get a lot of pressure from Trump to cut rates. I think Trump needs a booming economy. I think he's pulling a lot of levers at the same time to try to get things really jump started. Um, Not only does he have a lot on his agenda, but I think he's also trying to, get some wins on the ledger. So when people start campaigning for midterms, the Republicans can try to maintain some of the leads they have and, try to build some momentum, going into midterms and then, the next presidential election.
They do need that, especially that the US economy posted this small contraction recently, and that's in addition to latest drops in the market following Trump's tariffs. Of course, the market has recovered most of that decline, but many believe we're not out of the wind yet, out of the storm yet. Do you agree, or what's your prognosis?
I think it's hard to tell, but I would agree with that. I mean, I think, people tend to overreact and markets deviate, mean reversion cuts both ways. And I think people overreacted to the initial tariff news. And I think people, again, overreacted to Trump having a pause. Now, it doesn't mean it's a done deal. And who knows how the negotiations go. Like the news broke this morning that him and G held a call, which is great. But I mean, I don't think China's under any pressure to get things done. I mean, I think since we're the ones who started it, I think there's more pressure on Trump to resolve this quicker. And I think, China basically right away cutting their critical mineral exports to the US and our allies was
Mm,
I think, a big warning shot of like, hey, we're not going to
mm.
get bullied and we want a fair deal. And I think, you know, in any trade or any fair deal, I think both sides need to get something. So I'm really curious to see what hill they want to die on. And they haven't
Mm.
really advertised that yet. And what hill, Trump is going to die on.
Yeah, like you said, they're not in a hurry, and critical minerals is a choking point, I think, for the West that China can leverage. Of course, there's also AI, but we will look into that. Would you like to go through some key charts and technical levels?
Sure. I just found Google really interesting. Closed yesterday, which was June 4th at 168, has major, not I would say medium support at just under 167. And it's bullish short term and bullish overall. So that's kind of pulling back to a key resistance area, or a key support area. So this could be really interesting setup, especially if there's good news out of China. Not a lot of overhead resistance. So you see, that was a $210 stock in February
Mm.
before we had the sell off with the tariff stuff. And they have Waymo and they have some other stuff going for them. I know they had still do have some regulatory issues or some monopoly issues, but, you know,
Mm.
depending on how that plays out, that might not be a short term resolution there. But this could be a good setup here. I don't own any personally right now, but it's one I'm keeping an eye on. And I think it's really interesting because that usually trades, the whole tech sector, but Google usually trades pretty well along with the semiconductors. So if you look at the VanEck Semis ETF, which is SMH, like that has really run up from April, that was 175 and it's up to 250. But if you look at it, it's still bullish across the board and there's not a lot of heavy resistance here. And you have medium support at 246. It closed at 251.75. And you have more support at 234. So it's pretty solid support on a chart considering how much it's run up in the past couple months. It's not really too stretched and it's kind of consolidated. If you look here, like basically for the last part of May, it really consolidated. And if you look, like there's a chance for it to break out again with not much overhead resistance.
Hmm. I like it, especially that the trend score is still quite low, so it has more room to go up.
Yeah, it has more room to run. Like it's
Mm,
not a really, to your point, it's not really a high trend score yet, and
mm.
it's not over. It's only 67, so it's not over 70 for RSI, so it's not technically overbought yet. And stuff can stay overbought for a while. Like that's a tricky part with RSI. People sell at 70 and it still runs up to 75, 80, and you miss the big pop.
That's the definition of a trend. It remains overextended, so it remains
Yep.
overbought for a while. So it's not really a reason to stay out of the trade. I agree.
I want to take a look at NVIDIA that closed almost at 142 yesterday. Again, bullish, but the scores aren't super high yet. But if
Mm,
you look at it, not much for overhead resistance, like very low numbers,
mm,
and has medium support at 140, medium support at 134, medium support at 129 almost, and then more support in the 120s.
mm,
So this is a really nice chart. And if you look at it, like this could have been a double top at 140 and
mm.
it's starting to break out above that. So there's room to run until, you get to 148, 153-ish. And again, the RSI is at 69, but it's not RSI didn't shoot straight up. Like it still looks like it has room to run.
Yeah.
And I mean, Nvidia's up 25% on the month, which is crazy. Like you don't think of a major S&P component of a company running that much in a month.
No, and the momentum is really nice. If you look at that last leg up, it's
Yep.
yeah. So a lot of momentum here can be get
Uh,
supported. Mm,
And then you got Broadcom, which is AVGO. They're another big chip maker. I mean, this chart is just, I mean, it's straight up. It's like a hockey stick from basically April. I mean, it went from 150 to 261. This bullish score is a little higher. Like
mm,
our maximum bullish is +1. So it's, halfway there, but the RSI is at 82.
mm.
And if you look, like it has support at 244, but not much between 261 and 244. So I could see this one taking a little bit of a break and maybe trying to consolidate. But again, like you look at this line, like it broke out,
It
it
did.
tested it for one day and then it broke out.
Do you think it might retest this key support zone?
I think it could. I'm not long it right now. I've
Right.
traded in and out of it in the past couple months. So I'm kind of waiting to see, with the RSI that high and literally no support until 244. I would, personally I'm not adding here. Now it could keep running, but I don't like to chase stuff. So I've made money in it. I'm happy with what I did with it. And if it pulls back to this 244, 245 level and this confluence holds, that
Mm,
would be an adding point for me if the trend score is still bullish. AMD closed at 118. That's up 17.6% on the month. Also bullish score.
mm.
I mean, this has also run up a little bit, but as you can see, it's consolidated and it tested some key resistance points and it has medium support at 108, medium support at 115, and
Yeah.
it's right up against medium resistance. So it closed at 118.58, has medium resistance at 118.84. So if it breaks out above that, the next resistance isn't until 126. And that's not a heavy number. And then above that, there's nothing. So if you look at this chart, I mean, it's consolidated. RSI is only at 65. Like you know, this really has a chance to run. I'm not guaranteeing it will or saying it will, but I think, just looking at the chart and looking at the scores, like I'm gonna
Yeah.
be I'm probably gonna buy this and then either today or in the next couple days, depending on how the market trades, because I like the setup.
I like it too. I mean, I can see an invisible trend line being broken, but before this key support zone where two supports are those thick green lines. But also there is this support, those two support levels are like a floor. Yeah,
I mean, it's traded very well. If you look at that, those numbers have held up over the past couple months. And I just want to see it clear this 0.84 number. Like if it clears that, I think
right.
it has a good chance to keep running.
Yeah, this one is the strongest one, this resistance level at 118.84. But other than that, I think it should be a breeze.
VRT, so Vertiv is trying to figure out how to describe. They're kind of more of an infrastructure for AI. Like they don't make chips, but they help with kind of how the information gets moved around through AI. So they're bullish overall and neutral short term. Um, but if you look at it, closed a little bit under 113, medium support at basically 101, medium support at almost 112. So it's basically right up against support with not much overhead resistance. So I'm curious to see, is this neutral because it means it's going to consolidate for a couple of days before it makes its next leg up? Or if it breaks below this, is this going down to 101? So this is another one I want to keep an eye on because if this support holds, this could be a good buying opportunity, especially with the EMA and the MACD are all bullish.
Mm.
It had a bad candle yesterday, which is probably why it shifted. It was bullish short term and why it
Yeah.
probably shifted from bullish to neutral. So, inverted hammer is not a good candle to have, but if that pulls back to key support and tests it, that could be a launch point for it.
I think I'm looking at it and I don't see a lot of buying pressure after that strong support level. So I would agree with you. This is a hold for me. This
Yep.
one is a hold for me, but it could come back to the upside if there is buying if buying pressure comes back.
Yep.
Mm.
No, I mean, this is one people I don't think about when they think of the AI stocks and the chip stocks, and this is one that trades pretty well alongside it. So I think this is just one to keep on your radar, and it's not really talked a lot about, but it's done really well in the last couple of years. So it's just to your point, it's a hold for right now, but it's definitely one to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, and it is in the value chain, in the AI value chain. So it
Yep.
could benefit from the whole this whole AI wave right now.
And then I just want to talk about completely different sector, but gold and silver. Think Trump with all his policies that he's doing, I think tariffs are going to be inflationary. He's already admitted that.
Yeah.
Reshoring is going to be inflationary, and he's admitted that. And I don't disagree that those are probably good things for America to
Mm.
create more jobs and to create a more stable economy where we're more producers and not consumers. But I think in the short term and the long term, it's going to be inflationary. And I think that's where him and Powell are going to have trouble coexisting because if Powell sees inflation rising, that's one of the Fed's key mandates. They're not going to want to cut rates. Trump's going to want rates as low as possible. And he's going to want to run a hot economy. And Besant came out, it was either last week or 2 weeks ago, and basically admitted that,
Mm.
they need to grow the nominal GDP faster than they're growing debt. And that's how they're going to shrink the debt to GDP. And it's funny he said that. And then they had the big, beautiful spending bill come out,
Mm.
which is a lot of government spending. And, that's why Elon's no longer in the White House and him and Trump aren't getting along now. But
Yeah.
if they're going to pass that bill, they're really going to need the economy to ramp up and they're going to need inflation to kind of grow to inflate away the debt. And I think that's where gold and silver and the miners that accompany that have really sniffed out that inflation part. And that's where I think the big money's really come in. But if you look at GLD, I mean, from January, it was 240. It's now 310. It's neutral short term. Um, but it's basically plus 1.64% on the month. So it's been even on the month, but it's at almost 311 now. It has medium support at 305
Mm.
and slight resistance at 316.
Mm.
So I don't know if this is going to be a trading environment where you have inflationary expectations and investors worried about inflation. So you could see people trading going long, you know, long crypto, long AI stocks, long tech stocks, and long gold. Or this
Mm.
could be an area where if it pulls back below this 305 level, you
Mm.
could see gold, take a pause here. I'm not saying it's going to go all the way back down to 240, but if Trump runs a hot economy and stuff starts to take off, I think gold could pull back
Mm.
and then you could have a sector rotation out of gold. I mean, you look at that volume that's come in
Mm.
and that's pretty heavy volume for a GLD ETF. But it's just been interesting to watch how gold and silver have traded alongside kind of the AI stocks in the past month.
Mm. Right. I mean, for me, I already had a short-term short position on gold, a very, very short-term position, which I exited, but I still see some resistance in the short term facing
Okay.
gold. In the long run, I agree with you. There is inflationary spending and policies. But in the short term, I mean, technically at least, I can see that there aren't a lot of resistance areas here facing gold, which could prove me wrong. But the technical shape here looks like, at least for now, it might face some resistance at those points because I can see an ABC wave which could continue to the downside. But like you said, it's not likely to go down to 2400 or lower than that. There's a lot of support. But I mean, it's
I
it's
think
a
with the
hold.
tariff,
Mm,
I think with the tariff uncertainty, that puts a little bit of a floor under gold,
yeah,
at least in the short term. And if they work out a
it
trade
does.
deal, then all bets are off, like depending on how it works out. But I mean, this was kind of a double top right here. I could see it setting up for a triple top for sure, and then moving to the downside.
That's exactly what I'm looking at right now, which is making me a bit reluctant to go long on gold. But for the long run, gold is definitely a key commodity to hold to add to your portfolio. That's I feel it's is essential.
Just funny that's been basically neutral in the month, and then you look at SILJ, which is the junior miners,
Mm,
and again that has a lot of torque both ways, and that's neutral overall, neutral short term. RSI's at 73, but it was up 9% so far in the past week, and it's up 22% for the month, and you don't really see that a lot.
yeah.
So I think part of that was just silver was lagging so far behind gold. I think it was a little bit of a catch up move, but I'm really interested to see kind of where the next move is with silver because I've been in some silver miners in the past month and they've done really well for me, but I'm kind of agreeing with you. I think I'm
Mm,
watching it closely and this might be a good time for me to trim some of those positions down to a more minimum level and lock in some
mm.
gains.
Yeah. And juniors tend to lag generally, but before
Yep.
before the majors and the other players. So I think it's that can be helpful because you can easily predict where they might go based on how the majors have moved. But I don't see a lot of resistance here facing.
No, so that's why I'm curious. But I think it's moved up so much. I think that's why the algorithm's thinking, this might be a short-term top here. Because if you look, the chart's kind of getting a little stretched. Like there's not any support really until 13, and it's closer to 14 and a half right now.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if the algorithm's picking up like this was kind of a double top and it broke out,
Mm,
but I wonder if it's going to pull back to that kind of more 13 range and consolidate for a bit.
that might be the case. Yeah. No.
But that's all the charts I wanted to share. I just thought, those couple stocks were really interesting. Just, with what's going on in the world and then how some of that stuff has really traded and moved in the past, not only week, but in the past month. It's been really interesting to see like the sector rotations have been really quick and they've been really heavy. And usually you don't see that. And especially with all the uncertainty with the tariffs, I wonder if Wall Street knows, the insiders at Wall Street are connected to the administration know more than we do. If
Mm,
they know a trade deal is imminent and or who knows what they know.
yeah, possibly. Um, I mean, I guess like you said, they have the midterm coming up and they have to prepare because their prospects for the Republicans, I mean, are not looking great right now based on the performance in previous months. So they have to work out a trade deal. Uh, and they have to avoid that inflation, especially that even though it's very difficult to do so, but they have to show some good performance in those 2 years until running up until the midterms. And they have to manage the debt because the debt is currently at 36 trillion, if I recall correctly.
Might be higher. It's getting close to 40, which is insane.
Oh. Yeah. And that's 126% of GDP, which is also alarming. I
Yep.
mean, Moody's downgraded US debt a while ago, and that was they kind of sounded the alarm, especially for a country like the US, which is considered the safest in the world when it comes to bonds. But That's also
Fiscally, we're close to emerging market territory with our debt to GDP. And that's why I think Moody's downgraded us. I think they called us, they're like, we see a very similar path to Argentina here,
oh,
which is scary.
yeah, no, that doesn't bode very well. But I hope there are some developments in the pipeline that would turn this around. I mean, it's not a certainty, but you never know. We hope. But thank you so much, Kevin, for all of this. I'm sure it's at least for me, it's very helpful. Hope it's the same for others watching us. And for those of you watching us, please leave your questions below, and Kevin and I will get back to you on those. Hopefully, to help you lift your portfolio performance and happy trading, everyone.